Welcome to the Women in Safety podcast. This is a show that provides a supportive space for women in safety careers. We break down the barriers and provide opportunities for growth. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to be notified of new episodes and join us. Now, here's your Women in Safety podcast host, Tamara Paris.
Thank you for joining me on the Women in Health and Safety podcast. And we'll start off with kind of learning a bit about who you are for our audience who is listening. So Aleksandra, why don't you kick that off?
Thank you for having us, Tamara. And my name is Aleksandra Duk. I'm a co-founder and chief marketing officer at Big Global Safety. What we do, we take care of digitization of safety spaces in manufacturing, production, warehouses area, and many more. So we are strongly connected with the safety topic. We are facing all the time with safety officers, with safety professionals, but also with facility managers. So I have to say that I got interested in the safety topic because of the technology. So this is how I became the part of Big Global Safety.
And Tamara, why don't you share a little bit with the audience about who you are and where you come from?
Yeah, sure. My name is Tamara Misewicz-Healey, and I am the founder of an organization called My EH&S Alliance. I actually got started in health and safety right after school. I went and got my master's of public health with a focus in environmental health. So I always kind of had an interest in this area in human health and how our environment impacts that. So after being in the health and safety field for 8 years, I decided to branch off onto my own and create a company that was really in alignment with how I saw the future of safety going. So kind of our signature product and service is actually a culture-based safety management system that's really about moving kind of the idea of safety forward. And I'm sure, we'll kind of get into that more, but just about taking health and safety from, one or two people responsibility to empowering everybody to kind of have more control, more understanding of their health and safety in the workplace. So yeah, so I look forward to kind of having these conversations of what the future of health and safety looks like.
I like what you're saying about moving the idea of safety forward from just one person or a couple of people viewing themselves as responsible for it, or other people viewing them as responsible for it, to empowering the collective to be owning safety. And it's a bizarre thing, in fact, because when we go to school for occupational health and safety, we are educated that safety is a shared responsibility. It is not one person's responsibility. We are also educated that the employer is responsible for setting up the practices, policies, and programs in order to cultivate a safe and healthy work environment. And to add to that, we're also taught that it's about elimination and mitigation of risks and hazards, as opposed to, blaming somebody for an unsafe act or putting PPE on people to kind of bubble wrap them for protection. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to begin our conversation a little bit about finding out from each of you, where was safety when you first entered the field? So how was safety being done? And then we'll move into comparison to where it is today. So which one of you wanted to kind of take a stab at that first?
I could take a stab at that. So like I said, I've kind of been fed right into health and safety right out of my education. And I'd say 10 years ago, things were actually quite different. So it's really great to see that safety is kind of having this opening to innovation and advancements right now. So when I first entered the field, there was very little diversity in our field, which I'd say is still the case, but definitely getting better. But as a young female, I definitely felt a little outside. I remember there was no female friendly PPE. And I had even asked some of the sites I was working at if it would be possible to get smaller gloves. And they said, no, we buy in bulk and we're not going to buy bulk for just one person. So there were a lot of things that weren't really friendly to a female worker. But now, well, I'll get into, I guess, now in a moment. But so yeah, PPE, there weren't many options for females. But even like the tools in the workstations, there wasn't much ergonomic friendly equipment for adjustability for different heights and different considerations. There weren't really even special considerations for vulnerable populations. So when a woman may be pregnant, a lot of times even the data, the research, they didn't have much data and research on that at the time. And workplaces themselves definitely weren't really well read and versed on what special controls those populations needed. And then like mental health was definitely not much of a consideration in the health and safety space 10 years ago. And, we're seeing that change. Pen and paper was how everything was done at that time. And like I kind of already mentioned, safety was really considered the job task of a couple of individuals. Some facilities that I consulted with, it was the responsibility, like a side responsibility of a facilities manager or security. So all of this, I definitely see changing, and I've seen changed over the past 10 years. I definitely don't think we're in a great place with any of it, but we're getting there. Like I said, there's a lot more diversity. We're seeing a lot more females enter the space. There's a lot more PPE, and there's really great companies started by women to address this. And I think some of this innovation is coming out of just maybe social media, just having more ways to communicate the needs to each other, so that the actual businesses and innovators are hearing that there is these missing areas in health and safety that they can get involved in. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of great female-friendly PPE companies coming out, tons of ergonomic equipment coming out. Vulnerable populations are definitely getting more of a look at. And mental health, which is really exciting. I think we can all say how important and critical that is, and how the workplace may be a great opportunity for us to address that, to us to start recognizing that and trying to help those individuals, an own little community that can support each other.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Tamara, and what you wanted to just say about the pen and paper. I really aligned with this message, because to be honest, when we look at the whole world, how it's going with the digitization, we have Industry 4.0 revolution, we have automated production lines, everything is going automatic. And then we look at the safety processes, and the view of this, it's still very manual. Safety officers, they still use pen and papers. Sometimes they use tablets. We do have incident management softwares. However, still the input to the incident management software is manual. So we do not have much automatic or digitization around the safety. So I think it is a safety journey, let's say, that we have to join this whole revolution to digitalize the whole safety processes, because it is needed. We have bigger facilities, the production is just skyrocket. So I think this should be the next step really for the safety processes to start using what is now available on the markets, and maybe look at the markets a little bit wider, right? Try to use a bit of the technology from there, try to use the other one, just take a look out there, see what's in there, what can fit into your own facility and what works for you.
I've also noticed that over the decades that safety is very hesitant in order to progress. They do tend to like to hold on to what is comfortable and known, especially the pen and paper and Excel. I recall very clearly continuously having to redo training because somebody somewhere got it in their head they were going to clean out the office. And for whatever reason, they believed that included throwing out all the sign-off sheets for everybody's training. not even realizing that now, with a staff of 150 plus, that means that you're manually going to have to retrain everybody again. And depending on what kind of system you have, that may mean signing off on pen and paper again, right? Because if leadership believes that pen and paper is fine, they're not going to move forward. And so that really, makes me kind of think about, like, what are the barriers here that are hindering people from moving forward? Why do you think that they want to keep on these tools that they're archaic now, really, if you stop and think about it? Like, none of your generation is using Excel every day or pen and paper every day. I consistently see you using apps. So what are your thoughts as a younger generation looking at this?
I think you already mentioned one of the reasons, because it is sometimes the mindset of the safety people. And right now, the whole safety area, it is going more, let's say, diverse. And I'm not talking only about the female percentage in there, or races, or the or where you're coming from. I'm talking also about the background, right? So we do need people with different backgrounds, let's say from engineering perspective, but also from the human factor. This is also something very crucial that should be considered in the industry. So I think one of the challenges we are facing, it's the mindset, that they have been doing the process this way for years with the pen and paper, maybe with the tablet, and they're not really they don't really want to step up and maybe improve those processes, try out the new things. They're a little bit maybe afraid of those, or maybe think that they're not going to work as good as they think so. There are unfortunately those challenges, but for example, from our perspective, from the big global safety perspective, we're trying to face them in the terms that, hey, try out that 2-week free trial, right? Just try it out, see if it's working for you or not. It doesn't cost you anything, but it can really help you. So I think this is very important in changing the mindset of the people, to just try out, and then first you try and then say if you like it or not.
Do you think it maybe goes back to what Tamara was saying about the fact that, right, historically, safety has been more or less controlled by a siloed group of people spitting out what they believe others should be doing? However, if you transfer from pen and paper or an Excel sheet that is typically a one-person tool shared amongst a few people, and you go into an app, which it can be on everybody's mobile phone, and now you're really releasing control, right? You're moving forward to that, getting the collective insight. And when you do that, maybe the collective isn't going to agree with the way that you've been doing things for the last 20, 30 years. And do you think that might be a portion of it, not wanting to lose up that position of privilege? Because it is a position of privilege, right?
Yeah. I could speak on this a little bit. So I definitely think that could be a small part of it. Some people, I think, do struggle with having their job kind of open and shown. I think it also is that, especially health and safety professionals, right? We constantly look at risk, and we're constantly assessing risk, and we want to keep risk as low as possible. And I think for some reason, a lot of health and safety professionals look at technology as a high risk. And I think they look at it that way just because it's new, it's unknown. Are they going to spend a ton of money and then it flop? And I think they just have this fear of, they made a bad call and it wasted money. And I think they have a hard time overcoming that risk that they perceive. But like Aleksandra said, the great thing about a lot of this tech is, talk to them. A lot of times they give these free trials and you can test it out, lower that risk that you're feeling and those uncomfortable feelings, because change is uncomfortable. even though, I grew up with computers and apps. Yeah, every time I get a new app that I'm going to utilize for work, there's a learning curve, and you're uncomfortable. But the great thing is you can trial it. You can work with these professionals who help steer you and integrate it. And there's so many tools out there now that can assist with that.
I still think that there's a psychological barrier, though. I'm going to kind of disagree with you on this one. I think that there is quite a piece of wanting to maintain that control, because right now, they do their incident reports, they do their audits and everything, and it's them going around and doing it on a pen and paper. Whereas if I am giving the capability of others to be doing it on an app, now I'm trusting other people to evaluate risks. And I've often heard people say, well, I don't think that they'd be able to assess the risks. And I scratch my head at that, because if a person is competent to do their job, we've hired them to do their job because they're competent, and then sometimes they have special certification and training to do it, then the individual should be also able to assess what are the risks and hazards within their own working tasks, right? One would hope. Whereas somebody who is health and safety who's never done that job, there's going to be a higher probability that if I've never done the job, there's going to be things that aren't even on my radar that I should be thinking about, especially if I'm observing somebody who is very good at their job and has calculated risk and is already mitigated or eliminated certain risks, so that when I'm observing, I may not even notice those. And then I could be leaving that out of when I'm trying to write something up. I mean, when I was doing work with individuals, when I was shadowing people, I would even ask to be allowed to do some things and have them explain to me, what do I need to be considering? What do I need to be thinking about? And the stuff that came out of people was gold, right?
Yeah.
And so when we were writing the procedures together and going over it and asking them, what have I left out here that's really critical information? A lot of the times they would come back with quite a few things saying, oh, wow, this and this needs to be done up front. I know you didn't see me do that, but that's because I did that at 8 o'clock in the morning before you even arrived. Right. And it's like, oh, okay. So there's a piece of that was done in a preliminary portion of the,
that's
of
true.
the work, right? So I'm kind of curious exactly. It's been a long time, to be candid with you. Tech is not new, right?
Yeah.
But that's true. But I also think that another portion or another factor is that we have some people that have been in the industry or in the safety area for, they say, 20, 30 years. And some of them, they are super open-minded. They are really out there to seek for new technologies or just new ideas. They're really open to what's new in this whole world. But we have also the portion of people that they like the old way of doing, and it's been working good, so why should we change that? And I think that the idea is that better is not enemy of good. And another thing is that sometimes, especially let's say with this more professional generation, if I can call it this way, that works much longer, is that we have a learning curve, of course, but sometimes we also have a de-learning curve, which means that if some people have been doing for years the same way and suddenly they have to jump to the new way, it might be harder for them than to those who are just jumping into the safety area. So I do agree with you, Tamara, but I also think that it really depends on the mindset and on the psychological factor that you've mentioned before.
No, I like, the conversation that everybody brings, because these are multifaceted, problems. And that's what's really great about getting together with different people and bringing different expertise. I like what you said about, how some people, they might feel uneasy giving up that control. And I agree that there's so much power in including every single employee, because like you said, as a health and safety professional, I will never know your operation better than you. So for me to come in and say, hey, this is the best thing, or, we should do this, it's just unrealistic. You are the expert in your job and your workstation. And it's through actually working together that we could come up with the best solution. I've seen people implement controls that completely destroyed the operation because it wasn't practical and they didn't include the actual end user. And that's why collaboration is so critical. And I think including the employees on the floor in the health and safety practice is just going to optimize your health and safety, because if something goes wrong, who is the first person that's going to notice? The people right there. By the time a health and safety professional gets around to it, it could be months, if they even pick up on it. So involving the worker is critical to having an excellent health and safety culture. Now, you might still need your health and safety professionals to do a higher level assessment and evaluation, and comparing it to the standards and research that's out there on how to optimally control it. But for hazard identification and recognition, yeah, we should be educating and empower every single person to play a role in that.
Absolutely. I wanted to change gears a little bit and understand a little bit from your own professional experiences. What kind of challenges did you guys face when you first came into the health and safety field?
Of course. So for example, from my perspective, it is the safety male dominated, right? Especially when we talk some bigger companies, always the safety, or like almost always the safety officer is a male. So as a female, sometimes it's not easy. But from my perspective, what's always working is that we have to be very professional. So it is always harder for women in the business environment, because when a man makes a mistake, oh yeah, everyone makes a mistake. But when we have a female, especially young female, who is new to the environment, for example, me, I'm not from the safety background, I'm from the marketing background. However, I am in the safety industry, right? So yeah, for me, it was very new. I had to learn everything from the beginning, listen to them, what they have to offer, and also other way around. So for me, it was very important to always be professional, ask the right questions. I also took a lot of time to prepare beforehand in order to deliver the best possible outcome and to show myself from the very professional way. So it's, unfortunately, that's the reality. Yes, female have it in many cases harder, but if I can really towards my message to female is that we can do it. It takes hard work, but it is doable. And even when you make a mistake, everyone makes a mistake, so you can still do it, and then the next time just make it better.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You have to keep on that professional track, no matter what type of things come back, either be it through an email or verbal. Yep. I've been called a ditz, like, oh well, never mind, she's just a ditz, which is totally unprofessional just because you disagree with something that I said. Or I've had also an incident where an email came to my attention because I was trying to bring up something, and the email, the tone was like, oh yeah, well, I just came by while I was going somewhere else, because I'm sure it's nothing to be concerned about, always getting a knickers in a twist type of thing, right? Where if they were talking to a male colleague, they wouldn't be talking like this. They wouldn't say the male colleague has his knickers in a twist or panties in a twist. Actually, it's panties in a twist, which is even sexual in the innuendo, right? That somehow, because I wear panties, it affects my capability to think as a professional. And so that's some of the challenges that I went through. Like, I remember one time I was going for a job interview with my corporate health and safety manager. And for some reason, he thought that it was an opportunity to see if we could go on a date. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't do that with a male colleague, right? Going to a meeting. And so just for disclosure, that's some of the challenges that I've had to navigate. What about you, Tamara?
Yeah, so I mean, I think almost all women can relate to things like that. Especially, you know, being in my 30s, but being in the health and safety field in my 20s. Anytime I had to address workers, it was always like, oh, honey, sweetie, what do you need? And I used to joke a lot because I have a big interest in ventilation. And I was working in a facility and had to go to the ventilation facilities manager. And I was raising a concern about the ventilation in a space. And he's just like, you see this metal box on the ceiling? That is what we call an intake. That takes the air up into it. And I'm like, yeah. And then I just kind of, you know, blew out the whole problem and like went into details and like, I know what an intake is. And, but sometimes, yeah, especially as a young female, a lot of these older guys that have been there a long time, they want to treat you like their daughter, like, you know, you're pretty. I've been told, you know, it's nice to have eye candy around here. Lots of different things, borderline, you know, okay, not okay. But I think especially now that I've kind of branched out of being a worker and trying to actually start my own thing, I could definitely feel myself being stronger than ever. And I think you have to be. So I kind of always let things go a bit when I worked at workplaces because I didn't want to cause any problems, you know, and I didn't want to create a toxic environment so I just kind of like lowered my voice. But, you know, as a business person now, people will walk all over you. So, you know, I just try to use my voice, always be professional, as Aleksandra said, be the bigger person. And honestly, I've told several people, you know, I don't want you to call me beautiful. You know, like straight up, I think kind of now as a mom and as a businesswoman, I have no time to try to make others feel comfortable while they make me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's actually awesome what you just said, and I really agree with you. And I think you're not the only one who faced those challenges. And yeah, one actually thing that came to my mind is also that as a female founder, I also took part in the expos, and you know how it is in expos. You talk, you hand in your business cards, you hand in some flyers or some promotional materials, And when I was doing that, men also approached me that, hey, here is my business card, give it to your boss. You know, I want him to call me, and yeah, I'm my own boss. So, you know, that's also, it doesn't matter sometimes if you are still professional, if you stay in professional, if you really kill them with kindness, sometimes they will always have their own mindset towards you. And sometimes what you have to say is to speak up. Hey, I'm the boss, I will be calling you. Or just smile and say, okay, just depending on the situation, right? So we do have to face it a bit differently, but yeah, it's hard, but we can definitely do that.
And I would push back about having to just smile and take it, because we've done that historically. Mm-hmm. And all it's gotten us, to be quite candid with you, is smacks on the butt and individuals thinking that it's appropriate to ask us out on a date. It is not appropriate that if you're at a conference or something, that you give somebody a business card and say, oh, call me for drinks, honey, you know, with this kind of little wink. It's like that's really creepy, gross, to be quite candid with you. Like, and I think one of the things that we do have male allies. And so I think one of the things that we as women could be asking the male allies is to speak up. If you hear somebody who is talking like that, let the person know that, hey, you know what, that's not okay. You don't treat female colleagues in that manner. I think, as well as other women, if we hear it, to also address the woman by her name, right? Oh, I believe her name is, you know, Tamara, right? As opposed to silently letting that honey or sweetheart or darling just kind of sit there, because it's disrespect. It is disrespect. And I think that's one of the top insights that I'd like to share with our audience, is that I think it's time that we share that being disrespectful to others, no matter who they are, is inappropriate. And like they talk about the fact like, well, there's more women in health and safety, right? Maybe there's more women, but are the people who are here being treated with true respect? Because
that's true.
do they actually have influence? Because if somebody is giving you a business card and saying, please give it to your boss when you are the boss, in my eyes, that's not being respectful of a woman in the profession, because you still think that you must have a male leader, right? And so if we are really in that place of being respectful, you wouldn't assume that a female has a male boss. What are your thoughts on that? Am I just being out there?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I know you addressed what I said before, that sometimes you have to just keep it quiet and smile. And I do see your point of view and why you're saying that. But this is also my own opinion, right? Maybe from my background, from my experience, but it really, there is no one, let's say, golden way that you should handle every situation this way. And I do believe that we should always speak up when it's needed, and when we are also hurt. But in some situations, it doesn't matter what you say, they will always see you in this kind of way. So from also one thing is the personal, right? So yes, we are female. Yes, it is a bit more let's say struggling for us than for male out there. But sometimes you can just get more by smiling, and sometimes you can get more by speaking up. And you have to know and decide which way to use and when. And this is actually what I meant, because I face those challenges whenever I say something, or when I really spoke up, it did not make a difference, or it even harmed my business. So I also had one story with different culture where I was mailing a lot, and they thought I'm Alexander, not Aleksandra. And actually that was the main reason why they wanted to meet with me, because they thought I'm a May. So when I came to the meeting, it was a huge, let's say, disappointment for them. But well, I got my meeting, right? So sometimes you really have to choose what kind of approach you will apply for the special situations.
Yeah, I think it also has to do where you are in your life journey as well. You know, I'm a more mature woman, and it's kind of like what you said, Tamara. It's like, I'm at the point now where, you know what, I just don't have time for your silliness. I just don't. And it might also be because, you know, I'm in my 50s where I don't care anymore either. Like I'll turn around and sometimes just say, oh, please, like, you know, if you can't be respectful with me, then don't bother with me. So I do think that as you go through life and you do different experiences, you just finally in that course of that journey, in that path, just kind of get to a point where you're like, you know what, I really don't care anymore. If my hair is frizzy, I'm not wearing lipstick, and you don't like it, that's your problem. And I was meeting with some friends, some other women the other night, and we've all kind of finally gotten to this place. So, you know, but on the other side, I totally understand, because when I was a younger woman, I often put up with a lot of garbage and just suck it up or smile and be quiet and stuff, because I was in a different career path, different part of my journey of wanting to get ahead. Tamara, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could tell my younger self, you know, stand ground, stand up for yourself a bit more. But, you know, I think there are a lot of things at play that we don't even fully understand of, you know, when you are younger, you do care more about your social presence, and you are trying to appease people and be liked. And there is something that when you get older, you kind of grow out of that. And, you know, maybe it's because you're starting your own family, so you have much bigger things to worry about. But yeah, I mean, you know, especially in my real young days of like working in restaurants and, you know, bingo halls or different places. I mean, yeah, I definitely took and accepted a lot and smiled and just wanted to make everybody else feel good and comfortable. And I took that on instead. But yeah, you kind of find your footing, and I would definitely recommend to any woman, you can stand up for yourself without being rude. And you're allowed to do that. And, you should do that if you feel offended. You should let them professionally know that, I don't appreciate you calling me that or speaking to me in this way, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we would be proud of you.
And it's an uncomfortable conversation. However, one thing is that you don't do it publicly.
Mhm.
It's not something that you sit there in a meeting and lambaste somebody back at a meeting.
Mhm.
You pick your battles, you pick your timing, right? So
Yeah.
you may smile at the meeting and say, okay, well, whatever, we're going to let that pass here. But then you quickly follow it up later with, hey, can we have a chat?
Yeah.
I just wanted to connect with you and let you know that during the meeting, when this was said, I felt this way and I don't
Mhm.
appreciate it, blah, 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 and use I language and make sure you're not being defensive is a very critical piece though, too, right? You have to own.
Yep. And honestly, sometimes people don't mean it disrespectfully at all. Like when I was living in the South for a while, everyone calls you hon, sweetie. And like, that didn't bother me at all. It's kind of like how they use it and what other actions they're doing with it. So like you said, taking that time aside and just having those conversations, they may not even realize, and they may not have wanted to offend you. And they may feel mortified that they did. So, you're absolutely correct that like, don't get defensive, but just having those conversations and just like using your voice and just seeing like where they're at. And that's how you solve any problem, right? We can't solve any problem unless we kind of discuss it and go through it. So.
Yeah, I also want to add one thing to that. It's not hard to be taken as a hard woman. So, and in many cases, that's actually what applies. When male are think that we are quite desperate or can be sometimes tough or defensive. So it doesn't take much sometimes to be seen as such a woman.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another piece of it, though, is what I've learned along my journey is choosing who you want to do business with. In the last year, I have intentionally chosen to do business with certain mindsets, people who think a certain way, and it has made life so much easier. And it has made life so much easier to start identifying those that you don't want to do business with and feeling good about letting them go, knowing that that's not a healthy relationship. That's not a healthy interaction, and just saying thank you, but no thank you. And I think that's one of the things that has changed historically, is that now we're at a place in our modern society where we can say, no, you know what? That's not the right kind of culture for me. You don't have my values and beliefs. I'm going to go work with people who are in line with my own values and beliefs. And 20 years ago, that wasn't even a discussion that you would have with yourself, right? This whole, who do I want to be and how do I want other people to see me? Mm-hmm. We weren't asking ourselves questions like that. And we've really changed. So I think that's one of my recommendations for our listeners, is being true to your own value system. And that will make it a lot easier in navigating the partnerships that you have, because if you're all in line with the same beliefs and value system, then you're going to be treating each other respectfully. What recommendations do you guys have?
Yeah, Tamara, go for it.
Okay. So, so many recommendations, but the ones that we'll bring to the table today is, I guess one of my biggest recommendations falls along the line of collaboration. Mm-hmm. As a health and safety professional, don't take the weight of the world on. Collaborate with other departments in your organization. Collaborate with the workers in your organization. Collaborate with governing and standard bodies, and collaborate with businesses. I used to manage interns at one facility I worked at, and they were so scared to call companies to inquire about like a question. So if they needed to order different gloves, they would research for hours on the internet and try to come up with the best solution. And I'd say, well, did you call Grainger? Did you call the company? No. I'm like, well, they are the experts in that product. Why not give them a call? Have this conversation. Don't bring the weight of you being the expert on this on yourself. Call, have a communication, collaboration. And I really try to give that recommendation to all of our interns. You're not going to know everything in this field. It includes, health and safety includes so much, right? Biologicals, chemicals, physical hazards, psychosocial. It's endless. You cannot be an expert in everything. So collaborate. Take that weight off of you that you even expect yourself to know everything. Call the companies who do specialize in those things and get their feedback and input and recommendations. So just collaboration.
From me would be maybe two advice, or one would be towards females. So don't be afraid to go on your own. Don't be afraid being your own boss. And if you have an idea that you feel it's really great, if you've done a market research and you see that your idea or your skills is really something that it can help people out there, there can be really a huge demand towards this. Go for it 100%. I know sometimes it's easy to say, but it's not so easy to do it. But spend a bit more time towards that and really go for the idea. Don't be afraid. Everything will be fine. Towards safety professionals, guys, future is out there. It's actually coming, and the future is starting now. So I would like to see those safety professionals going out a little bit more towards the technology, because everything is new technology, right? As we mentioned before, we have this digitization industry. It is happening right now. Artificial intelligence, the automatics, robotics, it's everywhere. And the time for safety will come as well, although you're ready or not. So it's better to be ready right now and just try out what's on the market. Go for the free trials from some companies, call them, what Tamara just mentioned, just call them, get out there, see what's there, see what's working for you, and choose, and don't be afraid.
Well, thank you very much. This has been a great conversation. I do appreciate you joining us for this episode of Women in Safety. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.